Hello, everybody, and welcome to another film, Flashback. Last week, we decided that we would go watch the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live-action movie, and we brought in our great buddy Joe Johnson for that, and we had a great time, but there was so much left to say. There was so much more ooze to spill that we decided we'd bring Joe back, and this week, we are doing 1991's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze.
Some animals are knocking down the telephone poles.
Let them get their own cab.
That's the canister that had the ooze.
That transformed us all.
Go ninja, go ninja, go! Go ninja, go ninja, go!
Go on! Go on! Turtle in the open! Surf's up, dude!
Ninja, ninja,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
Cowabunga!
The Secret of the Ooze.
Excited to have you all back with us. Excited to have Nick as usual. I'm Matthew, and of course Joe Johnson. Welcome back, Joe.
What's going on?
We're this is really interesting. We just finished watching this movie about a half an hour ago. This is part of our instant reaction series that we're doing, and I gotta say, I did not remember a lot of details from this movie, and then I watched it and went, "There's not a lot of details in here. This is pretty straightforward." It's I don't want to just start rambling on about what I feel, but the first thing I noticed is that when the last movie ends, the first movie of the series, you'd say, this one seems like it picks up right away, and it seems like it doesn't pick up right away. And we were talking about it while we were watching the movie. I was like, wait a minute, does this movie happen like hours, minutes after the last one ended, or is it like a year later? It's hard for me to tell because it seems like a lot of time has passed. But on the other hand, Shredder is still in the garbage compactor. And I was like, so I don't know, guys, like, where does this movie occur in the Turtles timeline?
Well, per Wikipedia, I guess somewhere in the script it said 1 year later. Now, unless we just missed it, which I don't think we did, there's one easy way I can think of to solve this time problem, which is putting a title card in the beginning of the movie to let us know it's a year later. Yeah, because it seems like it's 5 minutes after.
Right.
Yeah. Wow, they've lost weight, and wow, April got a lot better looking in that few hours since the last movie.
Yeah, the cold open of this movie for guys is when, like, you've got, first of all, the movie opens up and I see that you see two dudes eating slices of pizza, and I'm like, okay, I get it. It's New York City. You showed us the skyline. Now you show people eating pizza. I get it. Pizza, that's part of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Then it goes on for like another 60 seconds of a montage of just New Yorkers eating pizza. It just slimy cheese all over the... And I was like, okay, so they showed 3 different shots of people eating pizza. Okay. And then it was like, no, it kept going. There was like 11 different shots of people just eating pizza. And then it's like, we finally move into a scene in the pizza shop with a pizza delivery boy, and I was like, okay.
That's all New Yorkers eat. Of course. I mean, come on now.
And we are introduced to our new our best new human character, right? As was it Kino?
Kino. So
he's our pizza delivery boy, and he stumbles upon the world's largest robbery. There's like 35 dudes.
So quick note about Kino. I have very fond memory. As soon as I see him, I'm like, F&A, right? Kino, man, that guy. As a kid, I really enjoyed that guy. Now I liked watching him. I'm like, that guy's fun. He's got a lot of energy. Yeah. And so there's no Casey Jones in this movie. Spoiler, he doesn't show up. This is one of the only movies he's not in. But so what happened, obviously last week we talked about the first Ninja Turtles, extremely violent, turned a lot of people off. This is a lot more fun. And the actor that played Kino, I just had it pulled up, Ernie Reyes Jr., he is actually the physical actor for Donatello. And so they liked him so much in the first movie that, like, outside of the costume stuff, they turned him into a character in the second movie. They decided he had one of those personalities. And I don't know how this guy never made it into any other iteration of Ninja Turtles. because he's a very likable character. Like even to some extent, he's just not there.
Yeah, he gets like a ton of setup, and then he's sort of in the story, but he doesn't really play into the end of the story all that much. But what are your first impressions on your rewatch, Joe?
I was quoting this movie embarrassingly. I guess it's very like lack of like content, but I just remember watching it so many times as a kid that I could quote it before it happened, and I was like, wow, okay, this movie doesn't have a lot going on. It really put an impression on me when I was a kid. I mean, I dug Kino. I mean, I wanted to be Kino when I grew up. I mean, I joined the karate class too for like 2 days, and I failed miserably. And yeah, it was mostly because I wanted to be that guy. It was like between him and Tommy from Power Rangers. I was like, oh, if I can get anywhere close to the badassery of these two gentlemen, then I will be on point with all of the ladies in my life from here on out.
Joe, I'm with you, man, because I haven't seen this one in it's been a long time. Because it's not exactly something they show on like, TNT now, because it's not for that audience. So just hasn't been on. Like True Lies is on all the time, stuff like that. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze is not on all the time. Unless it's on Nickelodeon, who bought the rights to Ninja Turtles. Anyways, I thought the pacing of this was crazy. Like it's nonstop. We go into that first fight, and then it's nonstop the entire time. And I remember I felt like going into it, I'm going like, wow, yeah, I haven't seen this in a long time. I feel like forget it. And I'm like, wait, there's not things I forgot. There's just not a whole lot of detail in it. It's just like, it's very, very cut and dry. Like, here's the plot. And I like most guys don't make it that long. Like Toka and Razor, who are two of the coolest introduced characters in the movie, are not really in it all that long, but very, very impactful in the scenes that they're in. But we're just kind of like jumping around in the movie.
So, like, you were talking about how the first movie was some parents were annoyed. It seemed pretty violent. Well, there's a few total changes, big changes that happened from the first one to the second one. The first one is not like it's bloody or anything like that. It's mostly, pretty still tame. It's not like it's a horror movie, but it is violent and it's a little darker and it feels at least mature enough that you could enjoy it over the age of 10. This movie does not. To me, this movie, they make sure that the weapons never get used, so they have them using stuff like sausages and like foam bats, and they're just like mostly looking at the other guys and like I think was it Michelangelo at one point is like, can't we talk it out? It's very toned down. So it's like they go from being teenagers to like being like fourth graders. The way that these guys talk, I was like, fourth grade Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were so hilariously childlike. The sound effects are ridiculous. People getting bonked in the head, and there's that coconut sound like dunk.
Like it's just going around. It's like
like it's an old Disney cartoon or something. And it was like, okay, they went full on silliness with this movie, which is like, I guess I understand from the marketing perspective, but it makes it hard for me to watch the movie and enjoy it because the whole thing just looks like they're trying to sell me toys.
They are just trying to sell you toys. That's exactly right. They're trying to sell tickets for kids and toys. So the first movie was
kind of a crap movie. Then
see, I enjoyed it for what it is. But I do have some nostalgia for this one. So the first movie was so violent that I think it was Playmates. I double check. They didn't want to make toys for the first one because it was so violent. They weren't on board for it. So the second one, that's part of the reason why there was a lot of backlash on the first one that was just way, way too violent. But the second one, that's why they made it so goofy and so marketable. Hey, you know how we could sell more toys? Let's throw in 2 more characters. And so originally, they were going to put Rocksteady and Bebop in here, which are iconic from the cartoon, if you watch the cartoon. And I think they ended up being later in the Michael Bay movie, Rocksteady and Bebop. But the 2 creators, Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird, did not want them in it. They didn't want them in it. They wanted to go with the original characters. I think you sell more toys that way because I know Rocksteady and Bebop toys are out. But I thought it was interesting too. The Eastman and Laird, they actually pitch, and if you're like a diehard Ninja Turtles or even watch the cartoon, the original pitch for this movie was the Baxter Stockman story, which is the mouse, all like these robot mice that run the sewers and stuff. So they wanted him. That was what they wanted to do. They didn't want Shredder to come back at all. But the studio's like, again, back to the point that you don't make a movie like this because you're trying to win an Academy Award. You make this movie so you can make a boatload of money. And so kids aren't going to want to go see a Ninja Turtles movie without Shredder.
Right.
So when you guys were young, did you see this movie like when it came out?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think I remember seeing this movie in theaters maybe 8 or 9 times.
Wow.
I had to go with each group of friends that wanted to go see it. So it got to the point where by the time the VHS came out, we had 5 pizza parties that I remember going to. One of which were one
pizza
of mine.
Parties.
and we watched that movie. And then everyone else went home after. And it was like, that movie was an hour and a half. That was not
yeah, but you probably weren't even watching it. It was just on while you guys whacked each other.
Yeah.
Hey, there's no such thing. If you didn't eat pizza like this with 3 fingers, it was not a Ninja Turtles pizza party. And if you didn't try that, give it a whirl.
So like you're talking a little bit about what story it should have been. It seems to me like I understand it's a commercial, basically. It's an hour and a half commercial. But since this is a movie podcast, a movie show, the script itself it seems like it was either changed, abandoned, or rewritten into oblivion. Because the movie's called The Secret of the Ooze, and they keep implying that there's a secret to this ooze. And then it's never revealed. They even have the scene where they were like, the professor explains that the ooze is what caused them. They're like, yeah, we already know that we fell into mutant, creating ooze. What's the secret? He's like, there's no secret. Some of it got out. It was an accident. And you have Donatello's character like turn and sorrowfully walk to the side, and Splinter's like, what happened? And he explains like, I just thought there was more to it than that. The movie's like half over, and well, he was right. There's no more to it than that. They don't explain anything else. They just kind of leave it open, and it was like, so what is the secret? And there feels like there should have been. It feels like in a different script, maybe they were, like you said, bringing a different storyline from the comics or a storyline maybe from the 80s cartoon. Like maybe there was more. That last act is so incredibly unsatisfying. Yeah. It's like, where is this all supposed to go? They sort of kind of almost get to something, and then the movie just kind of fizzles out and ends. And they were like, well, anyway, that's been 90 minutes, and so you enjoy it, kids, and buy our stuff.
Right.
So, all right, I'm going to put you guys on the spot. You get to rename this movie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 blank.
Ninja Rat.
Ninja Rat.
Oh, man.
It's a music video. Go Ninja, go.
I'm going to say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Ooze Control.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Why is April so hot?
And why is Michelangelo so
into her?
Dude is thirsty.
He's
got the posters. He's like ready.
All right, since we're talking about the sexual part of the Ninja Turtles, I'm going to segue slightly to the toys of the Ninja Turtles. So I have to bring this up. This isn't necessarily affiliated with this movie, but it is affiliated with Ninja Turtles.
There's not enough to talk about this movie. Let's just talk about
I just learned this. I just learned this about the original toys. The original design for the toys had tails, but the problem is when you looked at them from the front, you had it hanging down. There's lines in the cartoon and all this stuff about having tails, but they had to cut the tails off the toys because it looked like they were well endowed.
I mean, you're a mutant.
Yeah.
You should be. You gotta have something going for you if you're a mutant.
Yeah, like Mikey is all about human chicks. He is all about it. He has that like poster that he kisses when they're moving. He's like, "You're coming with me," you know.
Yes.
Yeah, he's all about it.
I mean, going back to the movie, I think that going back to it, I had fun. I had so much fun with this one, but I still liked the other one. I like them equally for different reasons.
Yeah.
I think the first one leads me into an actual in-depth story, where this one is like, I am waking up for Saturday morning cartoons and I want to see turtles do crazy stuff. And I don't really care if they have a storyline to go with. I mean, the ending was very lackluster. I will say that. I will double down on that. And looking back on it, like, oh wow, that was real bad.
So why don't we just recap real quick? So at the end of the story, what we have created over the course of this story is the Shredder is somehow magically alive, and it's hard to tell what the timeline is, but he's back and he has enough members of his Foot Clan. He still has Tatsu, his right hand man, and now he's furious. So he just lays it out. What he wants is revenge for being defeated and failing at the end of the first movie. And so what he ends up discovering is he sends his people over to the lab that is responsible for this toxic waste, and they somehow managed to get there of this toxic slime is properly disposed of. You steal it, they grab two animals, he asked for vicious animals, and they got a wolf and a snapping turtle. Just like, okay. He pours ooze on them and creates our new villains, and by the end of the story, that's basically what turtles have been fighting back against until they crash through a wall in the middle of their fight. because like, wait a minute, so was like the lair where the Foot was literally sharing a building with a concert venue? Because they crashed through a wall, and all of a sudden
I got a pretty good deal.
They're out of vanilla.
As long as you don't mind the noise.
Rent was cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to say this. All right.
And they have a fight at the concert while all the concert goers watch as if it's part of the fun.
And they do a choreographed dance.
Yeah, I don't know when they got time to figure out those dance moves. I mean, that song is apparently improvised. Like Vanilla Ice makes like a beat came on and he's now freestyling the ninja rap about what he's seeing.
Yeah. Do you think they just pulled a dump truck up to his house for this movie and like, here you go. You're going to sing this ninja song about.
I don't know if a lot was required. Did you ever see the Vanilla Ice movie?
Yeah,
like,
actually, with Suge Knight. So I also read where when the day I think they shot him out in a day or whatever it is. But Vanilla Ice shows up to set, and the guy playing one of the Ninja Turtles stuntmen goes up to him in costume to give him a hug, and Vanilla Ice's huge bodyguard evidently just shoves the crap out of this guy, like, knocks him down. And so all these other stuntmen and all these people run around. There's about to be this like big ruckus because Vanilla Ice is stuntman.
Oh man. Oh man.
They've almost got it. They got Toka and Razor, these two mutants. They managed to subdue them not by physically overpowering them, but by slipping them a concoction and shoving some CO2 down their throats by means of a fire extinguisher, so that they basically went back to little wimpy animals. So they didn't kill them. Nobody's getting thrown in a trash compactor. And Splinter shows up, and again, the whole audience is watching. They're on the stage with Vanilla Ice, and they have this like back and forth. They manage to defeat him by turning the volume all the way up on the speakers and mashing a keytar that is so loud that the energy from the speakers blasts Shredder across the room and through the windows.
It must have been Rick James's.
But everybody else standing around is just like, they're fine. Their ears aren't even ringing. No, all good. We've now used the magical power of this keytar.
So going back a little before that, I will say a very fun story part, because you were talking about the concert. We got the end of Toka and Razor. But a fun thing, it's funny if you're like, oh, or cool if you're like, all right, we got a wolf and a snapping turtle, like you said, and so they're gonna turn into mutants. But it's like, yeah, but get this, they're babies. Like that to me, especially when you think of like, you know, supervillains are always messing up, right? There's always something dumb that happens. It's never quite their fault, but it's kind of their fault. I thought that was actually a pretty clever thing, especially when you look at like the comedic version of this. Like Joe, you're talking about, it's way goofier than the first one. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, Austin Powers is funny, but give me James Bond, right? Like I'd rather have the more serious. Right. But when you're doing a comedy, it's always like, okay, well, that's kind of funny if they can, you know, make those things into mutants. But like, you know, it's funnier. They're infants and they can't do anything. So yeah. I started laughing. So I'm like, oh, that's right. I forgot they're total idiots.
And you have Shredder. You have Shredder going, they're babies. Yeah. Babies. Mama.
Also, like how when Toka and Razor like go out and wreak havoc, there's literally no cops out. Yeah. I mean, like what hood are they in? Like what sector of New York are they in?
Quarantine.
Like no cops are like, nah, I ain't messing with that hood.
Well, they bring back the same actor who plays the police commissioner, the chief, from the first movie, and they have new April O'Neil yell at him the same way she did in the last one. She's like, I have reason to. Were there any like, you know, large scratch marks on this destruction that you found? He's like, how would you? Let's say there was. What would you have to say about it? She's like, I don't know. She's like, do you know where they come from? She's like, I can't say. And he's like, so you're not allowed to help, huh? You gonna say anything? Is there anything more you don't want to tell me? And she's like, no. And he goes, all right, so now what do you want me to do about it? And she's like, I guess nothing. I guess. And he's like, yeah. And then the scene ends and you go, well, that's what the cops are all about. They're like, all right, so what would you like us to do? We found some telephone poles with giant gash marks in them that look like they're from a monster, but we don't see any monsters. What are they supposed to do, in all honesty? Phone
it in.
Put out an APB. Look, hey, let us know if you see any monsters. Don't keep it to yourself. It's like, I'm pretty sure any cop, if they saw Toga or Razor, would have called it in. Like, like, you don't. They just hidden, I suppose. Maybe they're just understaffed. I think that the only thing less satisfying than shooting Shredder out the back of the window using a keytar is the fact that he pours some ooze on himself and he emerges as Super Shredder. He looks like he's about 18 feet tall, and he's gained new spikes somehow, which is incredible. Like, you know, you think, like, I don't know how Ooze is supposed to work, but wouldn't he just Hulk out of his outfit and just be standing there?
Yeah, what's the chemical reaction with metal?
but anyway, glad they didn't do that. But then they don't even really fight him, like, at all.
There's literally no fight. And so I don't think we've mentioned yet that Super Shredder, a lot of people listening to this probably already know, but Super Shredder was played by none other than big, sexy Kevin Nash. But it's, okay, so if I have one knock on this movie, because I did enjoy rewatching this, I think it holds up. I think the costumes are way better even than the first one. The ending scene is very underwhelming.
Yeah.
Very underwhelming.
I mean, first of all, I'm just so confused about how Shredder existed in a garbage can for a year.
Eating fish heads.
Not a can. He was in a compactor, and Casey Jones pulls the lever and crushes him.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, he lost a lot of weight. I get that. But
not the first time characters come back from the dead, but
but yeah, it was like Leonardo didn't pull one, like there was no weapon action at all. The Turtles, and then at the very end, it was like you killed yourself, you played yourself, you just broke everything down, you played yourself.
It was a great idea. It's exactly where the story should go in terms of beats. Like Shredder should just pour ooze on himself, you know, and turn into whatever. I mean, around about this time, pretty close around this time, the movie Aladdin is coming out. And at the end of that story, when Jafar tries to get himself a genie, what he does is turn himself into a genie. And you go, that is way more terrifying than a bad guy with a genie is bad. A bad guy who is a genie is really bad. And so this happens, and you're like, all right, here we go. Time for some real fireworks. And the bridge just kind of like collapses on top of them, and that's it. Like they don't even fight him at all.
Yeah, then like not one blow is exchanged.
You're like, was that a fake out? Was there supposed to be like a second wind? And it's like, no, the movie's over. Hey, buy our stuff.
Hey, how about another clever line from Splinter?
I made another funny. Oh.
Another funny. If you're gonna say you said this movie holds up, and I'm gonna that I find mind blowing. If you say it holds up, then you're gonna have to explain to me what it was before. What was it to hold up? Like I would say it holds up as in it was trash before and it's trash now.
I mean, you could maybe go that route. I think it's nonstop. It's fun. Like I felt. There's so many jokes made in this movie that nothing breathes. It's nonstop. Someone's doing something and someone's trying to make a joke. Like I felt exhausted trying to watch this from a perspective of like we're gonna have to be talking about it afterwards and just actually trying to pay attention. Yeah. I felt like it was going so fast. I mean, you could follow, but it's just nonstop. But I think like this is it's a fun Ninja Turtles movie. Again, like Joe said, I would prefer the first one. It's a little darker. It's a little bit more geared towards adults, I guess. But this is a silly Ninja Turtles movie, and I love it.
Yeah, it's an episode. It's an hour and a half long episode of the cartoon.
It's right back to the cartoon.
And it's exactly what we grew up watching, and we knew that we could get away with. That's why I saw this one way more, because my mom was like, "Oh, that first one, kind of dark. Don't want you to get in on that violence." Oh, okay, too. The second Secret of the Ooze. This is much more kid friendly. I can get behind this. You're gonna see this 12 more times than you saw the first one.
Was there a lot of ninja gangs in Flint she didn't want you running around with?
Yeah, there was actually. I mean, Flint was like Angel Grove. There were just ninjas like running around. People were like karate tournaments. Then like it was crazy. It was nuts.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's a lot of jokes, but there's only a few good ones. I mean, like what counts for jokes are like in the middle of a fight scene, we're gonna have Donatello jump on a rolling chair. We're gonna play 60s surf rock music in the background while he goes like, "Surf's up, dude," and then he falls over and he's like, "Wipe out." And like
that's such a Mikey thing to do.
It is. Oh my God.
Or it's like wide world of sports, let's get this going. Like these aren't even punchlines. They're like references. And then we get our second Humphrey Bogart.
Two Humphrey Bogart references.
Yep.
Humphrey Bogart in the first one, Humphrey Bogart back again. It was like, I guess that's for what? The parents who were born in like 1970, or I guess in the 1960 or so.
And they'd probably fallen asleep by that point if they're.
Oh yeah, they're done. They were done. They didn't care.
I don't know. So like I remember we just talk about like the Turtles a little bit in general. Like I thought that the number one reason that I wanted to watch these movies is literally that I was just amazed by the Turtles themselves and the achievement of the Jim Henson Company to create what they were like believable. There's a big leap that happens in the history of like television and movie puppeteering when it no longer has to be they no longer have to be locked behind some like wall. And so Big Bird was sort of the first one that happened. You have Carol Spinney, R.I.P. He played Big Bird for many, many years. The whole idea was we've got Sesame Street Begins and you've got puppets, but they're always hand puppets that are behind like a brick wall or something. And they were going to have, you have human beings out on Sesame Street. But then somebody was like, no, I want to have these characters out on Sesame Street too. And so they had to invent Big Bird, who could actually walk around. And I don't know if you guys realize that, but like the one hand has to be above the head like this to operate his Big Bird's beak, while the guy looks down at a monitor, like a little one that's like stuck like this. So he has to do like this for the whole time he's walking around as Big Bird. And like that's an achievement because you can see him walking around. Just like if you watch the original Muppets movie and you finally see Kermit riding a bike. That was mind-blowing because it's like, you got no strings on me. And when you see the last movie and this movie, it was fascinating to watch just because it was like, they were puppets, but they weren't attached to anything. In fact, they were performing incredible martial arts stunts. And just for that, it's still worth watching if you're just interested in that achievement, because it's there. And we talk about this every film, Flashback, about how like the way you make a movie has changed to where all of the effort that's required for that, they just don't do that anymore. They'd have somebody in a mocap suit and they'd find a different way to make a different effect. But that's the reason to keep watching.
Right.
That's the reason to watch these movies again.
And I mean, I think also too, they really differentiated they kind of did in the first movie, but I think in this one, they really kind of like used all their different personalities and kind of made them all their own turtles. They really honed in on Donatello being the smart one, Leonardo being the party guy and the lover boy, Raphael being black because he was. He's a brother. He said, hey, they were like, all right, Raphael's a brother. He's like, it is what it is. I was like, I don't remember that line.
He walks in and just goes like, what it is. That's how
Like,
he introduced
what it is.
himself.
I'm like, what? He's a brother. And Leonardo, like, I feel like maybe he got the short end of the stick in this one because he's supposed to be the leader, the Cyclops character. But I don't really think he had much going on. Also, because he has 2 katanas and he couldn't use them.
No, they literally get trapped in a net and he's got the swords on his back, but he doesn't pull them off to try to cut out of the net. They just
what's funny about that? So, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the original comic is in black and white, correct? Mm. And they all had, like, red, maybe, like, was first going. So when they were first doing the toys for these, which it went cartoon, or toys cartoon, kind of a package deal, they're like, well, they can't all very well look exactly the same, so we're going to have to, like, give them personalities and change it up a little bit because otherwise it's just like they're all going to seem like one person. And so the cartoon depicts, I think, these different personalities. This one, we didn't get it really in the first one a lot. We didn't get it a lot in this one outside of like Donatello just like really being into the tech stuff. And like he did a little bit with the car last time, but other than that, we don't really see the personalities come out as much, I don't think, in the movies as we do the cartoon. They might as well kept them all the same color. You know what I mean? Because the voices are different, but like they're all a bunch of idiots. You know?
Like they leaned into the Donatello character in this one in a way that in the last one he was like a side character. Yeah. But in this one they really leaned in and they made him much, he's more intelligent. Of course, the screenwriters make both the scientist and Donatello sound like intelligent. What a third grader thinks it's smart people sound like. He responds by saying things like affirmative instead of saying yes. It's like, yeah, that's how smart people talk. They say things like affirmative. But
are you a doctor? Sorry, I just heard you say affirmative.
affirmative.
Astrophysicist.
But Raphael has plenty character. He's mostly just frustrated and he wants action. And so he has some of the same story beats as the first movie, where he gets all angry and then he's like, this is stupid, and he runs off. He fights with Michelangelo and then he runs off. Leonardo, and then he runs off. And it's like, yeah, he did that in the first movie. Okay, and now he's in a fight by himself, and I'm like,
typical Leo.
That happened in the first movie.
So talking about the costumes, I do piggyback on what you guys said. The costume, considering they shot this only a year after the first one, like the costumes took a major step up, and so we have to assume that the technology was there when they did the first one for the most part. So this film had an extra, I think, $10 million budget. The first one was like 13 and a half, I think. This was 25. So the extra $10 million went most likely, like that's what you get, those better manipulate.
Easier to move in.
Yeah.
But you can tell. I mean, you could totally tell it.
We're on board for that.
If you watch them side by side, like it almost reminds me of like the original Batman. Michael Keaton like couldn't turn his head, and so later they're like, "That's not going to work. Like people aren't going to believe that." And so they just
standing still there, Mike.
Yeah. But the major difference in the costumes on this one.
So we already mentioned Bebop and Rocksteady, but what about the character from the cartoon? You've got essentially this alien brain with a body.
Crying.
This would have been a wonderful opportunity to start to bring that kind of thing in, to really just take the Turtles live action franchise and start pushing it into that weird sci-fi world that the cartoon went to, instead of where the first movie was like pretty grounded and the weirdness was limited to the Turtles themselves and Splinter. This was like a great chance to really like spread that out, but the movie would have had to have been an hour and 45 minutes. It would have, you would have had to like spend a little more time, and somebody was like,
plot.
That's we spent enough money.
Or just do the third movie better and then go into the Krang plot with the Technodrome and that whole thing, instead of having them go back in time and be in feudal Japan.
Yeah.
At the end of this movie, Professor Jordan Perry, he walks away with a canister of ooze and disappears. And it's never like, nobody ever says where he goes. There's no epilogue of him like having a shadowy meeting with someone. There's no epilogue of him disposing of it. He just picks it up and like sneaks out the back door while they're doing the ninja rap. And it's like,
who knows, man? We never saw the director's cut. It might be like an uncut.
I'd watch it. It's almost like
Ooze. It's like 2.5 hours. We need to see that. I want the rated R version.
Oh yeah, I'd be in.
Me too.
So it's almost, to me, this one kind of comes off as almost like a rebranding. I was thinking of watching this, thinking of like Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's the same, but it's different. It's like, we do see them go through a lot of the same story. I was talking about Leonardo. I think they're trying to say, hey, listen, parents, sorry about the first one. Yeah, that's a little different, but this is who we are now. This is the Ninja Turtles you're going to see from now on. So we're going to like kind of do the same thing and make it a little more fun. But essentially, it's the same storyline. And then because I do think they're definitely, Clay, to your point, like is it Krang? I know what you're talking about. I remember what the guy looks like. He totally fits in the second one.
Oh yeah,
he would totally fit in moving forward. But the first one, it would be majorly out of place. But I would love to see what it would look like.
Robot body with like the brain inside of it, and he's talking and he's like, "Shredder, you imbecile."
Yeah, but they could have been. That could have been more. That could have helped create a secret for the ooze, instead of it's like, no, it's literally just toxic waste. It is like just some leftover waste, just accident.
Also, there's a scene where he's like just pouring it down the drain. It's like, where's that drain going to? Where can that lead to? Like, follow up with that. And also just the ninjas just break into a secret lab out of nowhere.
That was my favorite, because they walk in and they're like, doesn't seem to be any night security. And I'm like, God, you'd have to be an idiot, or this movie is so weird. Like, what do you mean there's no night security?
Or they just actually are ninjas. And it's like, all right, well, if you are a ninja, then yeah, they're all 15-year-olds. It's fine. Except for Kino. Kino was a badass. I can believe that's the only one. And then the random cameo with Michael Jai White, who is just looking like, if he became a foot soldier, I would be afraid.
AKA Spawn, for those of you out there doesn't know who that is. Also played Spawn. He went on to do good things.
And Black Dynamite.
Dynamite.
A lot of other things. But he's amazing. If he became a foot soldier, I'm afraid. All those other guys, except for him and Kino, I'm like, I'm taking him out 100% with karate. The Dan Cook of martial arts.
Yeah, they end up revealing themselves. There's a lot of talk about like, well, hey, the ninja way, you're supposed to be stealthy and silent. And then they literally get up on stage with Vanilla Ice and start doing a concert. And then they try to lie to Splinter, and they're like, no, we weren't seen. And he shows them a newspaper heading, but it's like, he makes a joke at the end of it. Well, they get the same punishment as they do when they're like slapping each other around. He's like 10 backflips. I'm like, I think that requires a worse punishment than 10 backflips.
You know,
That's why they keep messing up.
If I could do a backflip, I would do one every day, and I would do it more than 10 times. I would just do it. I would just do it. That's not a punishment. That's an achievement. I would celebrate that.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm gonna do a backflip.
Out of bed.
That's great.
Into the shower. Out of the shower.
Out of the shower. Yeah. Why not? Because why not? You can do a backflip.
That's a
Not a
Power
punishment.
Rangers move right there.
I feel like the people that
I
can
have to
do
go down to the
backflips.
corner store for some ice cream.
Yeah.
It's like you show off. It's like the people that are like walk into the club and they start singing, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay, you can sing. That's great. And you sing better than me. And you can put an album out tomorrow.
You were in
I'm not
church.
mad."
I got a hot take. I feel like the guys that can do that many backflips probably make good enough decisions to not do backflips all the time and do all that stuff. Or like drink 4 beers while watching Ninja Turtles 2 on a Thursday.
They're like, yeah, I'd probably break my neck if I did a backflip right now.
They might.
Confident.
It'd be
Or
like
they-
John Daly doing backflips everywhere.
Or they just do it flawlessly, just because they can. Maybe they have terrible personalities. Maybe these people that we're talking about have terrible personalities, and we're the cool ones, and they're like, "Oh, that was my backflip."
Well, you know what? I actually forgot about this till you just said that. The guy that played Leonardo in the costume is an Olympic gymnast, and so he's got that major flip that he has to do in the movie. And they didn't want him to do it. They're like, yeah, we're gonna find a stunt guy to do that, but they couldn't find anyone that could do it. And so they were doing this casting search to find someone that could do a good flip. And finally, the dude's like, look, even if you find someone that could do it, it's not gonna be as good as mine. And like, if Leonardo should be the best at this thing, and it's not gonna be as good. So they ended up letting him do it, and did it great because he's,
Nice.
you know why? He's an Olympic gymnast.
There you go.
Cast an Olympic gymnast.
Captain.
And then say, I'm not going to do the gymnastics in this movie. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm in a suit. Let's say the worst happens and I break my leg. We'll get somebody else in the suit.
Right, there you go. You got one.
We got
one
Kino over here looking for something to do.
got Ernie Reyes Jr. just killing it.
It's not that crucial, fellas. Like, I'm an Olympian. You know, please make all those hours, 4 a.m. going to the gym, worth it. Let me just do a backflip. I just want to be Leonardo. The only time he ever uses his swords in the entire movie is when he sticks them in the ceiling and then he pulls himself up with them and starts kicking people.
Yeah, they made a
move.
concentrated effort to make this significantly less violent.
Also, what was in that wall that he threw 2 katanas up and they just held there together?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, drywall isn't going to hold your weight.
No, they're
that
just gonna
way.
fall right down, or the swords are just gonna come straight down.
Sword in the stone. Yeah, it's defied a lot of physics.
The floor had ooze in it. The drywall.
Yep, there you go. That's what the
That's the secret.
TGIF guy was pouring. I mean TGR. God damn it. Every time I saw it, it's the same font.
Step
Urkel.
by
It's like
step,
it's the same.
day
Yeah.
by day. Well, this was a really fun trip down memory lane, boys. Do you guys have any final thoughts about the Turtles you want to make sure we squeeze in here? Whatever we talked about.
Well, I would like to bring up. So we've pretty much covered for me most of the stuff from the movie. It's exactly how you remember it. It's fast. It's dumb. The suits are great, and the dialogue is as cheesy, if not cheesier, than you recall. I do remember also the video games. We have a couple minutes to talk about the video games. So there was an original Ninja Turtles video game for SNES that was one of the hardest games you'll ever play. There's a lot of water levels, which don't usually go well.
No.
And I just remember as soon as you walk around the street, you get ran over by a car. That happens. Hardest game. But then, like, everything with the Ninja Turtles came to this, like, spike right at, like, 90, 91. Like, the cartoon is firing, the toys are firing out, the games come out, and then Ninja Turtles.
In case
Turtles in
Vanilla
Time.
Ice's presence didn't already die.
Yeah, he's the one that put him at that pinnacle. But the Ninja Turtles 2, Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, Turtles in Time, the best Ninja Turtles game of all time.
Fantastic. Only thing better that would have been is having it be 4-player, but we didn't advance that far yet.
Yeah.
But on PS3, you can still download it. You can download the game and it's 4-player online. So that's dope.
Maybe we'll throw it on. Maybe we'll stream it.
So you play.
I am down.
You choose.
So down.
You choose turtles that you want to be, but do all 4 fight? Like, do the other 2 like as computer characters fight with you?
No, you can only. So if you go through the game with just 2, like if it's just you and a buddy, there's no other people. So if you find 4 people that want to link up online and play, then you guys are all the turtles, and then you get it in.
Man, kids today will never know the difficulty of trying to play on a split screen. That was not a 45-inch flat screen either. We're talking about the bubble TV.
the big back. Where it was like you get this much screen, but then you got that much TV.
And you're trying to fight, and you're like, I can't. It's basically like if you were trying to fight and you just had like a cone around your face where you could only see this much. It's like you had horse blinders on. Occasionally, like I remember the racing games would occasionally be split screen down the middle, and it was like, oh, thank God I can see up and down, but you can't see when like the chain is going to come in to whack your head off of this.
Oh, last question for Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, did you have the pizza shooter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They banned it. They banned it because some idiot, probably in the Midwest, took the safety off of it and shot someone in the eye, and it made them blind in one eye because he had an automatic pizza thrower. I'm like, wow.
Might have been Florida. I feel
what
like.
Was that plastic?
Florida man takes safety off of pizza.
Yeah.
It's like little plastic like pizza disc, and it was just like they just shot them out like Nerf guns, but it was like hard plastic, and like some kid got it in the eye.
Yeah, I would assume that would have been. I would have assumed it was somebody choked on it. It was,
I'm gonna assume it's somebody from Ohio. I don't know. Because reasons.
Joe knows the guy.
The shade.
Joe, notice you've been squinting with one eye. Were you the?
Go blue.
He's got a glass eye. Oh man, you go the rest of your life, and like, people ask you about the story, and it's just like, were you in Operation Desert Storm? Not exactly.
I just picture like Quint from Jaws, like pizza shooter to the eye.
To the eye. I do the whole monologue.
Yeah.
Slam my beer down.
Stepped on a Lego one time. Got me pretty good. That's all I got.
Well, this has been radical.
Tubular.
Cowabunga.
Bossa Nova.
You guys can find
more
Flashback.
What was that?
Perestroika. You guys can find the rest of Film Flashback episodes on the YouTube channel for Handlebar TV. You can also find this in podcast form starting tomorrow morning, and on Spotify and iTunes and on iHeartRadio. Thanks again, Joe. We'll have you back for a non-TMNT show at some point.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, if you guys want to do the third one, that's cool.
We can do the third one. It'll just be so super cringy. I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna be super
real quick.
Cringy.
I don't think I've had enough. Anyway, you guys are the best. This has been Film Flashback, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Later, guys.